Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MSP 1337. It is 2 weeks in a row, and I'm joined yet again by none other than Charles Love of ShowTech Solutions. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
I was actually going to welcome you to MSP something, and I didn't have anything, which was completely unrelated. It's like, well, you are an MSP, so that was where that was coming from.
Yes.
Last week we talked about vendor Olympics, and vendor Olympics is often tied to the events that we go to, which, as we ended last week's show, we kind of had a segue into talking about what I think is perhaps one of my favorites anyways, is events, going to events. I love going to events and experiencing the community. And so this week we're talking about some of the history around vendor and community events, the has-been, kind of what that evolved into, and hopefully where we're seeing it going again in the future. We were talking offline. Probably one of my favorite events to go to of all time was South by Southwest. I went to my first event back in 2007. I was still without gray hair of any kind, I believe, at that point. I only had one child, and that child was not old enough to be out of diapers yet. So fast forward, all my kids are out of diapers and mostly out of the house. But that event was really, really interesting to sort of set the stage for our conversation today. It was a collision of a music festival and a creative festival under one roof. And at that time, it was the debut of Twitter. That was one of the big things at the event. And it was very focused on the social aspects of bringing people together. And I think part of that was tied to, in the creative space in the early 2000s, a lot of creatives have started down that path of working on their own, remote, starting their own businesses, independent 1099 type consulting for creative work. And then, of course, your music, artsy, kind of have that vibe going as well. Fast forward as MSPs and looking at the events that we started to go to, for me, 2008, 2009 would have been like my first time going to like a ConnectWise event, IT Nation. And the one thing that sticks out to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Charles, I believe that I was going to events that were genuinely defined by community, regardless of what the ulterior motives might have been for the vendors hosting those shows.
Yeah, and it's changed a lot over the years. It's funny, as you were talking, I was kind of going back to what my first event was. And it was something called BrainShare out in Utah. In the 96.
And no happy hour.
Yeah, well, there was. You had to be a member of a club, so you just
Gotcha.
It's a very weird thing, but I think they've done away with that. But back then, in the late 90s, like, because you would go to BrainShare, it was Novell's big conference. It was the IT Nation, that is for ConnectWise. It was what Novell used for their stuff, and
Gotcha.
you would sit in these sessions and hear from the people who mattered, right?
Right.
Like, you're going to hear from the guy who's writing GroupWise, right? Which is the email platform, and he would give you the roadmap, and it wasn't like 7 people removed. It was like they were all main stage presentations for the most part, and you learned a lot. And that's when I really started to get excited about what happens after the session, right? The conga line to the presenter. What about this? What about this? Have you thought of that? Right. And then we were doing, back in CompTIA days, we used to do these hallway chats during the old shows. We were doing that back then. We just didn't know it yet, right? And fast forward a couple of years, like IT Nation, like old school IT Nation, not the new one. you had the people in the right seats are the ones who are giving the content, right from the horse's mouth. And Datto at the time was also running their shows, and you had Austin and his brother like lighting things on fire, and I talked to some people where he works now, and I missed the days of Stumped Chump, right?
Sure.
Where it was Q&A. And nowadays, real Q&A, because nowadays at the end of your presentation, you go, hey, does anybody have any questions? Everyone's staring at their phones. They have no idea what's happening. Back then, like, Austin and his brother their session would be, it's all Q&A for 2 hours, and they would pack the room. Right. Because it was a horse's mouth type presentation. And I'm not saying this is bad, but nowadays it's I don't want to say it's marketing, but a lot of the presentations for a product is going to be all the high points. And when you go, hey, why did you choose to put the button here versus there? The person sometimes they have no idea, right? They're just, it's the marketing team. It's somebody like me giving a presentation on behalf. And that's how we've kind of operated like pre-COVID for the last couple of years.
Right.
And we're starting to see a return of what I like to call those micro sessions, right?
And yeah, the micro sessions are interesting because I think that's an interesting shift. We talk about, we know the road shows that happened during the COVID timeline. One for me that is still a highlight that was more recent was Dallas did our Cyber QP in Dallas, and we all went to Buc-ee's, and we're standing around outside. It's 110 degrees, and we're just, talking about, life and tech and what's trending and what we're going to do next. And we're all, chowing down on some pretty darn good barbecue. But like, it's such a small event that was all of us that were there during that pre-day before the event actually started, right? Like, we don't see that even a lot yet, but I think it's changing where, vendors will piggyback on another event, do a pre-day or a pre-day. And I think those are really important because I think if the evolution continues, that's what proves community, right? Like, we're trying to help members and partners go, hey, I don't want you to have to book 2 flights or go to 2 different cities, week back to back kind of thing. But like, hey, you're already going to go to this event. What if you came in 2 days early and you were able to do additional community time with a smaller group of peers? And I think those types of events and those conversations that happen, like you call them before, the hallway chats, they set the stage for you for the whole event that you're going there for anyways. You now have talking points, you have questions, you're like, now you have some idea of what you're maybe even looking for because you had some community time before you actually got to the event.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is show up at a session, like you sit there, you're on the plane, or a week before, you're planning everything out. It's like, how to do XYZ. Doesn't matter what it is. And then you get there, and it's a 30-minute speech, and 60 seconds of it is the title slide. The rest of it is pitching the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
At GTIA, we always talk about no selling from the stage, right?
Sure.
And that's an important line that I think a lot of people forget is, like, I can sit through a webinar. I don't need to travel.
Right.
Have delays, sit in a hotel room to have a live webinar. If your session is a live webinar, this is not good, right?
Yeah, there's the tail end ones that are even worse, in my opinion, where like the one you described, it's like, okay, we're a minute in, 5 minutes in, I can get up and leave because I'm already disappointed. There are others where it's like 30 to 45-minute session, and you're like, man, these guys are just on it. And then in the last 5 minutes, you get and the only way this can be achieved is by buying what we have to sell.
Yeah, or it's the sly, like, we do sell this, but I'm not here to sell, right?
Right.
I go back to the early 2000s or mid to whatever, when I was
in the beginning.
Yeah, Yeah, when I was speaking at IT Nation, I would do a lot of the 101, 201 agreements, sessions. Like
I feel
how
like we did some
Charles.
together.
Yes, we did, and it was how Charles, and I do it with Michelle and a couple other people. But here's how I bill my customers. Here's how I use integrations, right? With screenshots, and this is what I do, and this is the process I use. Like those are amazing for the people in the audience.
Right, because
Hearing
you're sharing experience.
experience is the key. Yes.
Yeah, and I think on top of the experience, it's the an opportunity to see something through a different way, like a different lens. Like
Yeah.
I remember the first time I got really amped up, and it was a tool. Well, we talked about it on last week's episode when Desk Director emerged in the equation, and it addressed a challenge that we had with getting our clients to open tickets. And we didn't really want them to just send an email, because just sending an email then would have no context, and it doesn't go to necessarily the right board, or you're missing pieces that you now have to still have a conversation. But they struggled with using the web interface because it was not really popular. And I remember doing a 101 session about specifically the usage of Desk Director and saying, look, you can now have a conversation. They can right click on their system tray. They can do a couple things in open text. And obviously there's been an evolution where that shows up now, like with RMM tools, et cetera, and it solves a lot of that. But I mean, when we showed that, I remember the room, I remember the line after we were done giving that presentation. That one actually might have been Josh and myself. But we were saying, like, we bill the client if we have to create the ticket. And they're like, how do you get away with that? We can't get away with that. And I remember saying this because we had finally pulled this off. We said, because we educated the client. We showed them how to get the most value, and that value came through the way in which they would open a ticket. And I think that we don't see a lot of that anymore. The presentation of firsthand experience. We see a lot of show events where pick a topic. Well, I'm talking about cybersecurity, not in the context of the vendor putting on the show or the education items that might be relevant to their platform or their stack. But we're seeing a lot of vendor hosted, but the sessions aren't doing that anymore. And I think we're also seeing that being a divergence at these events too, right? Where I go to the event and I either am doing a technical track that's specific to the tools and technologies that, this is the reason why the vendor's putting the event on largely, or I'm going to sessions that are more about what's happening in the industry right now, and the sessions are often not specific to anything that I'm using from the hosted vendor.
Yeah, and it's weird. We're starting to see a shift of what I like to call the micro events, the smaller, more focused, experience-driven ones.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like these big, the old school IT Nations, the old school DataCons, things like that. I don't know. I've been finding more value out of the smaller ones that are a little more dialed in. And there's just so many to choose from. So like if you go to channelprogram.com, right? There's I have it bookmarked. I look at it often. There's an industry calendar. These guys have kind of
Sure.
cultivated a list of all the things. And I'm looking at May. There are 4 days in May that have no events on it. Every other day, tomorrow has 6 events tomorrow alone. And it's analysis paralysis for an MSP who wants to kind of learn. Like, what events do I go to? I don't know. There's literally 40 events this month alone, 40 plus. Like, what do you go to? And often it's going to be, well, what makes the most sense for me? Like, what do I need to sharpen the sword on? What am I looking to get out of it? Am I going down a compliance path? Am I going down an AI path? Like, everything is going to have a kind of a focus. The ones that get a little messy are the ones that don't.
Right.
So I was recently at an event where it was a lot of vendors do sell to customers and enterprise now, right? The days of channel only are long gone. But this event, it was a mix. It had direct customers and it had MSPs. So the big thing that we had been talking about is that community, that one-on-one aspect.
Sure.
It was one of the most weirdest events I've attended in years, because you would sit at like lunch and MSPs, we asked the same questions. What do you use for backup? What do you use for PSA? What do you like? There's a list of like, what do you guys solve? Like, how do you solve for this? How do you solve for that? And man, when you're talking with enterprise customers who, they have maybe, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 users, and here you are with your MSP with your 2,000, they don't understand the lingo. Right. And I found it very difficult to, we could carry on like normal conversations, which is A-okay. But I like to go, hey, how do you guys solve for CIS controls? Right. And I asked that question, and everyone at the table's like, what's that? Wow. And I explain it, and they're like, oh, that kind of sounds like a compliance, like NIST or something. We do OSI. I'm like, no, not quite that. It was just a weird day, right?
Sure.
And the it's just one of those things where you got to make sure you're going there for a reason, right? And the reason isn't I'm getting a free trip or something like that, but how am I pushing the needle forward? It's all about ROI. When I come out of that event, am I super excited to come to the event next year, or am I like, I'm never going back to this?
Yeah,
and that's the struggle.
And I think, and I know I've heard from others that have been at some recent events where they were there previous year, say last year. They're at the event again this year, and last year was like, ROI, hard pressed to do this again. And then they go this year and they're like, wow, this was like a full 180. Like this is the days of old, like, right. Like this is what we were hoping it was going to be, like going back to the beginning. Right. And I know that there's experimenting happening with some of these events. Like I know I have some that are upcoming they're doing things different. Like I think this is the first time that I've got it'll be actually tomorrow. In fact, I have the MSP show Cyber Excel, and we're doing the Genius Cafe, like what we do for the GTIA events, and stuff like that to just kind of shake things up. One of the things I get to participate in is called I think it's called a hot topic, and it's like literally in the tech pavilion. They have a conference table set up, and it's got like TV screens behind it. It lists the topic, it lists the facilitator, and they go all day long. And basically, you come to sit around a boardroom table to talk about specific challenges that you're facing. Those types of ads to an event, I think, are really what is making you could go for that one thing and see real value, and then the rest of the event is really bonus time, right? But we didn't have that for a long time. A lot of these things are kind of like, it's an experiment that has proven to work, so we're going to expand where we do this, what was the feedback, and we're starting to see more of that. I'll be at IT Nation Secure in June, and they're doing it's kind of a community combined to do on that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, over the course of the 2 days. You can just, whether you've been to sessions or not, you want to come in and sort of have more of a conversation around challenges. Here's a list of topics, but it's really more about being interactive, like you would almost in a community type setting. So there will be more of a discussion model to it, kind of like what you see with panels. The one downside I think we see in the panel space is you have a moderator asking questions to 3 to 5 panelists, and sometimes it's too many panelists for the time allotted. Sometimes it's not enough diversity in your panel because maybe it's a sponsored panel. But you get halfway into this panel session, and then you realize that you're almost out of time and no one can ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest values that panels bring, is that you're getting that diverse, in theory, if it's done, say, perfectly. You have a great facilitator moderating a panel of diverse individuals that bring very different, diverse sets of experiences, and the people in the audience can ask questions tied to what they've heard, which gives them that talking points and the challenges that maybe they didn't know they had, and now they can ask real questions. I don't know. I just want to throw that one out there. That's probably one of my favorite. I love going to sessions that are panels.
Yeah. It's got to have that community element, and it's got to be the right fit for the topic.
Sure.
I just, like, if I'm looking, if it's, man, there's another vendor, and this is one of the, I'm not complaining. I'm just making a statement, but like, they had a pre-day, right? And it was a pre-day for one of their flagship products. So you come up early, you go to the pre-day, right? So you invested the extra time, you invested the extra money to be at that pre-day. And then the remainder of the days of the big conference, they literally recovered everything in the pre-day. I sat through 4 more sessions where it was the same slides from the same presenter. It's like, why the heck did I go to the pre-day? Like, and spent an extra $400 at that hotel that it shouldn't be in that area to begin with, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's all about the topic, and there's got to be an element of it's the what's in it for me, right? We got to stop with these sales pitches as a presentation. Bring back the here's how I do it type thing. Here's how we see success. I don't need to know your how many awards you've won, all that stuff. I don't care. I just want to know how your product or your solution can help me make my guys sleep better at night.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess to some extent, if we were to combine what we used to see, what you were talking about when Austin and Ian would get up on stage and just answer questions or give a real roadmap. I think those sessions are important. Like I think that if I got an email saying, "Hey, join us for this virtual webinar where so and so is going to give you the roadmap for the product that you use," I probably am not tuning in. Like, so many other things on my plate. But if I go to an event where I'm intentionally there for sessions, a track maybe that I wanted to do, and the keynote happens to be, the vendor that's hosting the event, and during that keynote they go through and give us a roadmap, awesome. Because they're going to have to make it amazing to keep our attention anyways.
Well, it's like old school IT Nation, right? You would go and Arnie would give the spiel as to what's coming down with ConnectWise. Here's the first look. Here's how it's going to be. That stuff, and Datto did it with the Datto products, and then Autotest it. Like those were great sessions because I want to know what's coming so I can be prepared. Right.
I remember specifically a Datto event where you got in trouble for jaywalking.
Yeah.
And that was right after you tried to slip a Cirrus 3 into your pocket, but it was a little bit too big.
There are photos of that. That was
there are photos. But you weren't pulled over for jaywalking. They saw what you did.
Yeah.
Those are some big pockets. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, if you think about what these events have to pull off to keep us there, like you think about like the closing parties for some of these shows, like the over-the-top artists and the effort that they put into that, and you're like, they're getting us to stay until the end because of the hype around what is that closing party. And I think to some degree we've lost sight of what used to be really important, which was spending time together, whether it was at the lobby bar, which I think that's gotten a little bit out of control too. You can only have so many people fit around a lobby bar.
Yeah.
So if you got 5,000 people at an event, or however many it is, like we even saw this when we were at the Gaylord there in Denver last year. I mean, there wasn't a lot of space to actually talk to people once things got going. Like, it's a lot of people being crammed into what used to be a large facility, but as the multiplier keeps happening with the
Oh
number of
yeah,
attendees,
for
it's
sure.
where the floor starts shaking. What is the code for how many people can
Yeah.
move a floor that is on the third
I,
floor?
I still don't believe that was. They swear up and down that was saved that day, but whatever. I digress.
Yeah,
But
I think those were bamboo beams.
yeah,
So I guess to bring this all back in, we're seeing a shift back towards a focus around more of a community and the partnerships and the value of what partners mean to the vendors hosting the events. How far out do you think we are of, like, rather than just avoiding events, it's going to become we have to make more strategic decisions around which events we go to, because we know that really no matter which ones we go to, the content is probably going to be pretty solid.
yeah, and I think we're going back to the roadshow era, like how we started back in the early 2000s. We recently went to a Hunters Roadshow, and it was really cool to hear not the spiel for why you need these products, but here's how people are using them, right? And Jeremy gives a really good presentation about where they were versus where they are, right? Like
Sure.
he talks about a product that they had launched. It didn't go the greatest in the beginning, but they're committed to that product, and now it's, in my opinion, it's one of the best products out there. But ask me when I tried it the first month it came out, and I thought it was not the greatest.
Sure.
But they admit, hey, we took this feedback. We're committed to the channel. We're going to make sure it's great, and it is. But sometimes during these smaller shows, you can just have those smaller conversations and get the information you need, right? I have a guy right now over at GeekCon over in Orlando, and I checked in with him last night. I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, it's the the after is great. Some of the sessions they're more of sales pitches, and that just bothers me so much.
Yeah.
But he's very happy he's there. He's meeting with a lot of vendors. He's already, he called me this morning and he's like, "Oh my God, I talked to so and so and I found out how we can solve a problem." That right there is ROI.
Excellent.
Right.
Right.
That's what you want from everybody coming back. I found a way to solve a problem or a challenge. Not look at the trick or treat bag of stuff we're going to end up throwing away anyway.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know what you've seen. I know, like, with the GTIA Cyber Hub, and the ISOW and some of the things there, but then you also have, like, the Discord servers that are popping up that are almost like competitors to Reddit, but for a different reason, right? They're really about a collaboration of bringing individuals together that are asking questions. I mean, we even see this with, like, MSP Ignite through their teams channels that are unique to, say, an individual peer group of, like, hey, anybody else dealing with this problem? Anybody else seen an insurance questionnaire like this? Like, it used to be we didn't have those channels. We had to go to an event to talk to somebody to get those answers, because we didn't just pick up the phone and call somebody.
They were called BBSs. So
They were
that was
called
the
what? Bulletin board?
BBSs. Yeah, the old bulletin board stuff that I used to run on dial-up modems.
Yes.
I'm old. I apologize.
But bulletin boards were largely one-sided, right? Like, it didn't have a good real-time. Mine was in GeoCities, but that's neither here nor there.
It's what's now Reddit essentially, but
right.
it was
right.
far less structured.
And now we can have as many as we want. But I think that's one of the things that you also see today is, you don't have to know the answer. You can just search it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But who's presenting it on YouTube? Because I know from experience in trying to work on a car, the 7-minute video that's swapping out the shocks on a 2002 Mountaineer doesn't take 7 minutes. It doesn't take 70 minutes. It takes more like 700 minutes. And you regret all of your life choices leading up to that, because the auto body shop that I could have taken it to would have had it done in, 30 minutes maybe, without editing the video.
Yeah.
Anything else, Charles, we should share with the audience? There's a lot of events happening this year, like as you said, like happening even right now. In fact, I think, what is it? MSP Geek is happening right now.
Yep, right over in Orlando. There's a bunch of things actually happening today.
We've got Evolve community groups are happening right now in Chicago.
Yeah, it's just, I'm a big fan of trying to get all the guys to go to something, right?
Sure.
But we're even here at ShowTech, we're really starting to see, like, there's a big show late in the year that I may not even go to for the first time ever, because I don't want to sit through webinars, right?
Sure.
I would much rather take that budget with that $400 a night hotel and have the guys go to something a little more niche, like a road show for one of our vendors, where we don't need the big extravagant thing, right. Like a box lunch is cool, you know what I mean?
But they also get to experience the appreciation that the vendors you work with do care, at least the ones that you're sending them to.
Yeah, it's just, we need more of those. How do we make ourselves better without buying the product? And GTIA does a really good way of doing that, where it's a lot of industry stuff.
Sure.
But man, I want to go back to the success stories, the hallway chats. Like those I think are far more impactful.
Yeah, I was thinking of some of the events that I've been to that kind of fall into that. CyberQP was obviously a great experience from that perspective. But you also see like the Pack State Momentums, their boot camps where they're really doing genuine education. That got me thinking back in the day when we were Datto Shop, going and doing the pre-day, getting certified on the Datto backup appliance, which was, I mean, getting the Datto engineering certificate was a big deal. And we sent three of us went through that training, and I miss those opportunities. Don't happen like they used to, where you can go to, we did this, I think, even with Continuum. We would go in and do a pre-day and get, like, the Lab Tech did it through their, you had the automation camp where you could go in on a pre-day and get your automation certification. And, I think those bring real value back. So you probably remember we did a lot of Sophos in order to basically get to certain levels of status with Sophos. You had to have so many people in your organization get the certifications for the different levels of engineer. We don't see a lot of that anymore. Like, how does a vendor set apart, like, hey, I want to work with these partners because they've put the effort in to learn our products, versus, I'm so excited, we have another partner selling our products?
Yeah, like one of my most proudest moments ever was, I think it was Denver, when I got my Datto certification at the event, right? But boy, that was like Linux, and it was nuts. It is nothing like it is today.
It was deep, like the terminal commands, like, oh man.
Yeah, but like, you went to the pre-day, you went to the training, and then the training committed with the test, and it was just a very different world back then. But that's definitely. I still have somewhere
my Datto leather, like, binder that had all of the stuff for the pre-day.
Yeah, but just go to things that make sense. Go to things where it's going to provide value, not just because there's a concert at the end.
That sounds good. Well, for those of you listening, this has been an episode of MSP 1337. Thanks, and have a great week.